is happening, Qatar has more of a greenfield approach. Right? You're building a lot of that stuff into the desert, so to speak. You have a much more sophisticated infrastructure planning, master planning exercise already undergone, partly under your leadership or the Prime Minister's leadership. But what I'd like to encourage you actually, this thought process of yours, I think is exactly the right one. So I think what needs to be done, and I'm sure Dato has a lot of experience in that regard as well, but what needs to be done here is, and probably we can help in that regard, is there some kind of...
Thank you very much. I think I treat that as a comment and experience that you've gone through that we can discuss after the tea break. But so there's a lot of food for thought. But I can see that I would love to have the condition in Qatar to in Malaysia, then maybe we can do a lot more things. But we have got different dynamics, but I think we can definitely learn from the Qatar experience. So we break for tea, I think half an hour, then we come back. There's a lot of things that have been left for very interesting discussion. Okay, thank you, we break now. I think we are punctual on time. That's very good for public transport. So I think if you look at the program, it's a Q&A session. So I think you have heard two presentations, so to speak. One is from Atkins' perspective, and then the other was from Mano, going through the story of SPAD. And I think now is Q&A sessions. We will open the session to the participants to ask whatever questions, and it will be very, as usual, interactive, and you can put forward any questions pertaining to the areas that we have covered. Shilin, would like to begin?
I think with the dear Tan Sri, eminent members of the forum, my name is Farhan. I'm a professor in transport studies, and I am a commission member. And we have been excitingly, following the progress of SPAD and having a first-hand also helping SPAD to grow. I will continue the provocation of Chief because I think that is a very critical item, and I think we have eminent panel members with vast experience from the world. Maybe we need some ideas on how to solve this. If we look at the last diagram shown by Magno, it is about the fragmented planning of transportation-related matters, which has been my research for the past 15 years. We are trying again to solve that problem, and while we are able to push things from the public transport perspective, we know that at the national level, it still will be in direct conflict sometimes with other government policies, namely the national automotive policy and whatnot. So in Malaysia, it is not just about policies from different ministries and agencies. It has a political influence to it. So this is very tricky for the government, as the compartments that we have are also sort of politically influenced in a way. And as such, we need a higher body to arbitrate and come up with a truly national transport policy, which has been my dream for the past 15 years. So to overcome this, it is also quite difficult for the Prime Minister, for example, to arbitrate between the ownership of the ministries and the agencies, which are quite politically sort of influenced, to make it, for example, to have one ministry for all matters of transport. I don't know whether we will see it in my lifetime, but if that can happen, maybe we can try to, we can progress. But having said that, there are many other countries who went through our experience and finally were able to come up with one authority. So perhaps for our benefit, if you have seen how these countries actually took that bold step from being fragmented to one, maybe it will be most beneficial to Malaysia in particular. So maybe that is to continue the provocation with more provocative statement, a bit sensitive, but I guess this is a platform where we can start to find answers. Thank you.
By the way, my other head is quite sensitive question, but I think as it is intended to be an open discussion, I think it's a very good question that has been put forward. Would anyone from the floor like to share? Professor Farhan is suggesting that there are a lot of overlapping responsibilities and tasks. As a result of it, there is no single transport policy as different from public transport, which is covered by the Act. So maybe you'd like to respond from your experience. Okay, I give you the floor.
Well, my experience has been in Scandinavia, where over time, Sweden, for instance, went for multiple transport authorities and all, and Sweden has now combined their transport, all forms of transport, into one agency. But it took about 22 years for that to happen. And it's only just happened actually in the last year or so that they put all their transport under one unit called trafficking. And Denmark is starting that same process, and Norway is working its way towards that process. But actually, it's taken a long time for that to happen, but the government structure is quite different in Scandinavia and their approach to how they look at transport, which is why Sweden's quite successful in how it's looking at a uniform master plan for transport and how all forms of transport work together. So I think there's some lessons that could be taken from the Scandinavian countries that they've gone through in the last years, because you can see Sweden now, when you look at their transport system, they have a complete plan that looks out many, many years, about 20 years at the transport. And it takes into all the things we talked about yesterday, how the pedestrian work, the public engages into the transport, and all forms of transport, airports, rail, roads. And it's all about how do you remove people from the vehicles? How do you get people to take public transport in a country that's quite spread out when you think about it? And it looks at all the different hubs of transport, water, rail, airports, and how they come together. And that's one experience I've seen in the Scandinavian countries that might be useful to look at. Douglas, you?
Yeah,
please.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Douglas McCormick, I'm the managing director of our rail business, and I'm based in London. The British, as you will be well aware, we invented bureaucracy.
I did not say, I was about to say that. I was being polite.
So we specialise in making simple things very complex. And we don't have a single transport authority, and we never have had a single transport authority. There are two major programs in the United Kingdom that might be a helpful example. We talked yesterday about Crossrail. Now Crossrail goes through everybody's back garden. So everybody doesn't want it because it's inconvenient personally to them. And you can then take that at a personal level, or at a local authority level, or at a regional level, or at state level. The second example is High Speed 2. We are currently consulting on High Speed 2, which is to build something like a 380 kilometre an hour railway from London to Birmingham and Manchester. And it is equally unwelcome. And how do you get the conflicting authorities and interest groups to get anywhere near any agreement to do those things? So in both examples we have done the same thing. It takes about 3 years. We have prepared legislation for the Parliament, and we enact an Act of Parliament to empower the project. And because the Parliament is the highest body in the land, and it's signed by Her Majesty the Queen, then all other voices are silenced. And there is then empowerment from the Parliament to do that. And it is the only way we have found to do things that cross everybody's boundaries and upset everybody's personal agendas. Because I also think that as an expert in bureaucracy, we will never get to a single body that can elicit one answer for transport. The question is too complex, I think. Thank you.
Okay, I think that is a soft reminder, whether in your intervention or your question, we need to be precise so that we can have more time for our interaction and engagement, and that will be very useful. So please move on. Before that, before I give the floor to you, I give it to Dr. Suret. He was formerly with the government and now is with us.
Thank you, Nasri. To me, there's a lot of problems that we will encounter if we either do not have a single authority, or the alternative to that is that all the partners take ownership and they are fully engaged and not partly engaged. SPAD can make all the effort, and as we see, there is consultation, there are workshops, there is outreach, there is program, partnership is being promoted. But at the end of the day, in the absence of a single authority, the other model can work and will only work if all the partners take collaborative action. They totally engage and they are totally passionate about it, and they are totally engaged and they are totally committed, not partially committed, partially passionate and partly to support. And there are critical components that are not within the command of SPAD. SPAD now is coming up with a national public transport policy, but not with the national transport policy, because there are components which are outside. So in the absence of a single authority, then you should have to be empowered to tell the Prime Minister or get the Prime Minister's endorsement to say we are building a railway, we are not building a road. And there are three approaches to enforcement. Somebody has to draw the whistle to say that, okay, for enforcement, among the three agencies, one agency is in command, and I am saying that we're going to do it this way. Because otherwise there will be shadow play, and people will be doing things in a different way, and there will be we won't have the principle of single chain of command. There will be a lot of infighting, and energy will be wasted. Thank you.
I think he has been 30 years with Ministry of Transport. Now we can see that when he is on our side, we are transforming him. We're very excited about the whole thing. I think from what Dr. Suret has read, it's not that, thank you anyway for the British introducing us to bureaucracy. I think it's not that we do not know the problems, but I think Suret or the two previous interventions, the most important thing is what mechanism you can use. And there are a lot of dissimilar situations, so you have to find the right balance. I think the case of Scandinavia, Sweden or Norway. It's a single state. In our case, we are governed by so many. There is a federation with the federal powers, concurrent powers, powers reserved to the states. So we have to deal with all these issues. But I think that makes it more challenging and interesting. Please, where's the mic? Left side. Actually, they should put names easier.
Tansri. Roger Cruikshank. I'm currently on the Central Planning Office in Qatar, and I'm doing the transport strategy work. But I will give some further examples. In Dubai, there is the Roads and Transport Authority, which many of you might be familiar with. It is very much an autocracy. So it is one authority that deals with everything. And we know that Sheikh Mohammed kind of passes something down and then it's enacted by people. But it is worth saying that Dubai has successfully, in a very short space of time, 6 years, developed about 1,200 kilometres of road, countless interchanges, 70 kilometres of metro and more, bought 1,500 buses, and of course that's all been telling around the financial weight behind it. Now, so the downside of that has been the fact that because pace has been so fast, then the actual consumer has probably missed out because they have not been able to intervene at all. The second example I give is the National Transport Authority of the UAE, which is actually a very small body. And the problem it has now, it has no teeth. So what they've done is they've suggested that they have major authority, and we've set out for them 37 major policies about road safety, development, capacity building, etc. But they've remained a very, very small organisation, and therefore don't have the mechanisms to go through. And I think what you're looking for is teeth. What we're doing at the CPO is that we have 150 people, but what we're doing now is we've had a major stakeholder campaign to go out and tell people, as we're saying, about how you own. And what we're now doing is we've asked each stakeholder to provide us an advisory. We've set up an advisory group so that each stakeholder that's involved in the infrastructure development of Qatar is involved with us. So effectively, elements of the organisations have been seconded into the CPO. So the road authority that has to do the road development is with the CPO, those that are developing the rail are, so that we can understand what their issues are and collaboratively work together through them. Because at the moment, as I said yesterday, Qatar has a 10-year deadline. So that's maybe the good thing about what's happening. It's got a 10-year deadline. But it is worth saying, it's interesting coming back after I spent a lot of time between 1997 and 2006, and many of you are familiar to me. It's interesting the same, some of the similar frustrations that come out. So it does appear that you need to arm yourself with the teeth, but you need to bring all those organisations with you. And I know that one of the things I've found in transport planning generally is it's how you sell it. It is how you sell it, and as I say, having a strong stakeholder engagement program that is also aligned to, we have, for example, in Qatar, if you don't turn up for any more than 3 meetings, we have to decide whether you still wish to participate or not. So even coming to meetings, there's a KPI. Because we want to understand whether you're with us or whether you're not with us. And it's just shocking that some of the examples given. The bus company at the moment has to pay for temporary bus shelters. It has to pay for toilets put in the bus station. So the public transport isn't even public transport in Qatar. It's actually been mechanised in another way. So I think it is about this stakeholder ownership and getting people. And I just saw with the booklets I saw yesterday how you are having ownership taken by your various priorities and programmes, and that's something that we need to have going forward. The other thing, one last thing is, at the CPO we meet with the Minister once a week, and we outline to him in very simple terms the issue, the possible solutions, and then make a recommendation. So I think it's important that the highest decision makers are given relatively easy considerations and then given a strong recommendation.
Just before I asked you Kruger to come in, thank you for your views. But I will give, because Michael have asked to speak first, so I will ask Michael Basic from the Office of Railway Regulations UK to give his view. Then after that I'll call Dr. Kruger.
Yeah, in some cases for the really big projects, actually the Act of Parliament is a very good way of dealing with it. But what we've got to also think about is how we work on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis. And I think what we've learned in the UK is that within rail we have a number of different institutional arrangements. We've got government, we've got local government, we've got the independent regulator. And what we've learned over the years is that we've got to find ways of working together and cooperating against some objectives of getting a better rail system in the UK, a more efficient rail system in the UK. And I think we've made a lot of success in that. I think the point about stakeholder engagement is terribly important because not only all the other local interests in the UK, but also the end consumer. So I think that can help, and it is all part of that trying to be more cooperative. I think the area in the UK which we now really face a huge challenge on is bringing it all together. We're not going to have a single integrated transport authority.
One emir in a country making a decision at the end of the day. That's not the solution that fits for democracy as it is here in Malaysia or it is in the UK. So you have a much more complex constitution of entities and stakeholders that are interested in contributing to decision making. And the art of running a democracy is to let this, to give way for that and to manage it well. And managing it well is exactly what an experienced politician like Tanzri, I think, is rightfully so leading this organization. It is this art of involving stakeholders and have the patience in going through this process step by step. My recommendation, therefore, is make the best out of the advantages you have. The advantage number one is that you have the possibility to engage the public. Once you are convinced on the SPAD side that you have the right technical and master plan solution, get the word out. What is the solution you're proposing, and engage the public. That has worked very well for us in the UK. Once we have a transparent discussion, there's a funny thing about technology and planning. There are lots of stakeholders involved, but funny enough, with intelligent people in a democratic environment, you know what? At the end of the day, the best solution is going to be successful. So once you have worked hard in finding what is the best solution for a transport problem, even if it goes beyond your direct area of responsibility, once this solution is publicly discussed, then it finds its way to implementation. The other recommendation I would like to give, and we discussed that briefly at the coffee break, even if there is no formal overriding transport authority, nothing speaks against the fact that the CEOs or the chairman of the different transport-related entities are, let's say on a monthly basis, meeting each other and openly talk, openly in the sense, close the door of the room, but openly talk at a table like that about the different interests, about the different solutions that are on the table. And again, there is this funny thing. If intelligent, capable leaders sit around the table like that, at the end of the day, the individualistic interests step back, and the fundamental desire to do the right thing for the country is taking the lead. And once this dialogue is established on a regular basis, you know what, even in a complex country like the UK, it works. And I think that's encouraging, and I see no reason why, with the two of you leading SPAD, why it wouldn't work here. And if you get very good advice, be it from a company like Atkins or other engineering companies who are capable to do that, local advice from the academics here in the room, then I'm sure the right solutions can be found.
Oh, there is light at the end of the tunnel. So it's not as gloomy as one would like to think. But I think it's always a question of dealing with it. When we talk about the civil service interactions, we are still new. I think what we have achieved, being a new organization, the stakeholders' engagement has been very encouraging. I think that's why this is the first step of having this public transport forum to see and get other inputs. How best should we proceed further? We even have, I think, Dr. Suret may know, we have a monthly luncheon with different stakeholders in order to create an environment of not, we are all in together. There is one purpose, one vision, one objective. Maybe the routes will be taking different routes, but ultimately we want to reach the same destiny. That is important. So thank you for the, any other comments or views? Silakan to Syahri from Pemandu.
Yeah, I wanted to maybe echo all the previous speakers. As Tan Sri said, it shouldn't be too despondent or gloomy about all these things. One of the things that we have achieved as a nation since our Prime Minister launched a transformation program back in 2010 is how we manage polarities better, how we respect differences of opinions, how we are able to articulate our own viewpoint, how we defend our case in the public via various town halls that we had after every major launch like GPP or ATV. And the other thing that we have done very well is the governance that we have put in place. So with an effective governance where they have the right authority, you don't really need a single authority to do everything about transport in this country. I think it's already, as a Muslim, I would say, it's alhamdulillah that we had SPAD being formed in June 2010. Because SPAD's role is basically will replace 13 agencies that are involved in land public transport prior to this formation. So that was already a lot of overlaps and duplication. So the way forward, as we have seen during the NKLA, is that we have monthly delivery task force, initially chaired by the Prime Minister, and then from October 2010 was delegated to the Deputy Prime Minister. And all the who's and who's in public transport in the country as well as for Greater KL are represented in that meeting. I think for the next meeting, will be invited on the 30th of July. So because of that, everyone has a space to express themselves, their views, and they will be heard. And eventually this year, in all the DTF that I've attended since the beginning, the consensus is very much respected rather than being overruled. So if we can continue this journey, and in DTF we are talking about government to government, because the entire carry programs are being implemented by the government, ministries or agencies. But if we talk about the NKA, and I have a second role in Greater KL,